Thanks very much for checking out this episode of Turning to Him. If you enjoy what you hear, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave comments, share it with your friends, all the basic stuff. When you do things like that, it makes it easier for other people to find the channel and add goodness into their lives. Thanks again. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning into this episode of Turning to Him. My name is Zach Batty, and I am here with Cortland Watson. Cortland, thank you so much for taking time to meet with me today. Cortland is half of the Returned and Renewed team. Is that fair to say?
Hey, that's fair to say. I would say more like 25%, but Simone does so much work, and I just tend to be kind of the face, so I appreciate the compliment, but a lot of work goes into it on Simone's end.
Tell me about Returned and Renewed. What is that?
Yeah, Return to Renewed is a movement really that Simone and I started when I was coming home and I was preparing to serve a mission. I was so excited, a life of ups and downs that really helped me strengthen my relationship with Jesus Christ. And then I go out on a mission, and I'm so excited to come home, this person I become. And then I get home, and it was just like this. I don't know, failure. I just felt like things weren't shaping up to be the way that they're supposed to be. But the problem is that it was silent. I didn't share that with anybody. I didn't talk about it. I felt ashamed that, I was struggling as a return missionary, and being the only return missionary out of my siblings, the only one at that time who had chosen to serve a mission. I felt like I had to be perfect. RMs are perfect. And then come to find out after years and years of being home and, almost a decade of being married, that I wasn't alone. That not only was I not alone, but I was in the majority, where return missionaries are coming home and silently struggling with how to deal with post-mission life. So as Return to Renew started, as I'm a practicing psychologist, and I've jumped over into the realm of life coaching, being able to help and support return missionaries as they come home to turn this post-mission adjustment into something that's purposeful and fulfilling, rather than just trying to push through the onslaught of waves that are coming at us. And, just kind of big picture, our vision, our mission is to rid the world of poor post-mission adjustments. And lofty goal, but that's the purpose, to be able to provide support and a way for people to turn these post-mission adjustments into something that's not a step backwards, but a step forward.
Yeah. I love that. Boy, what a life work that you can feel good about losing yourself in. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. And I had a friend of mine, he reached out to me on Facebook after he had heard about this. And he, I can't remember exactly, but he said something to the extent of, what an amazing mission that you guys have embarked on. And then he said this line that has just really stuck with me, and I've kept it close to me. He said, "You're embarked in the service of God again." And I just thought that was so wonderful, and it was such an uplifting and powerful comment for me to hear as we were embarking on this new journey. Because as you start something new, as you start a movement, as you're pushing against a lot of tradition and a lot of many years of missionaries just need to come home and figure it out, it was a little bit scary. And to see the response of so many people, to be working with so many people, to transform the lives of so many return missionaries, it's been the exact opposite of what I was fearing, and it's been wonderful.
Oh, good. Tell me a little bit about yourself growing up. Where did you grow up? How many siblings? All that stuff.
All right. There, you've opened the can of worms, because this is a lot. So I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. That's where I was born. And that's where we kind of grew up, and up until I was about 7, that's where we were living. And then about the age of 7 was when my family, who was very active in the church, my parents sat us down and talked to us about that they were getting a divorce. And so at this time, am one of five. So I have two older brothers, and I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Okay.
And at 7 years old, and this is my first memory. I can't remember anything before it. This is kind of where time stops
That's
for
where life
me.
starts for you.
Yeah. There are little bits and pieces that I can recollect, but I'm not sure if it happened before or after. Places like being in the same home or doing different things, and I can't quite remember where in the timeline it falls. But this one, I'm sitting there and I'm sitting next to the rocking chair. My dad's sitting in the rocking chair, and then over on the couch in front of me and my father, there's my mother, and then the other four siblings. And I remember everybody crying and me sitting there and not really understanding and comprehending, what's happening. And that's kind of where it started. And from there, a lot of different hardships, a lot of different experiences, both good and bad. But that's kind of where everything starts for me, and a lot of moving around from here to there. But that's kind of the beginnings of it all, right?
Yeah. So how old was your oldest sibling?
Yeah, so my oldest sibling at that time, he was 7 years older, so we'd have been about 13, 14 years
13,
old.
14. And then your youngest sibling.
Yeah, she would have been, let's see, 4 years younger, so she would have been three.
Okay. So 14 to 3 or 13 to 3,
Mhm.
10-year span. Was it, it sounds like this was a surprise to you, or perhaps you don't even remember if it were a surprise or not, since this is just where it started.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I don't know.
You don't know.
It's just a memory that doesn't exist for me. And just being a psychologist, it's very consistent with what happens when we're young. It's very common for people to experience traumatic things, and for that to be kind of the start of their memories,
Hmm.
and to just kind of block off everything before. And fortunately for me, Freud isn't around, and he hasn't been able to analyze me and get past that yet. I don't know that I'd want to sit down and have a conversation with that man, but
Yeah, that's interesting things there.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess so there's no adjustment for you to make. This is just life. This is how life is. Do you spend time back and forth between, is it like an every other weekend and summers situation, or are you always with your mom, or how does that work?
Yeah, and that's kind of, and you asked that question of kind of how things grew up, what life was like, and this is kind of the beginning for me, right? And life was, I'd go to my mother's house and I'd be with them for, the week, and then on the weekend, my father would show up after school, specifically at the park outside of the school building, and he would pick us up and we'd go over to his house. But the part in between here that was really impactful was that my mom, she decided to get married to this man who was very rough around the edges, and was actually an alcoholic. So again, I didn't know what life. I don't really remember life before, my parents' divorce. But we started experiencing, my mom and my stepdad, that they were drinking often. That my stepdad would come home from work and he'd pop open a beer and he'd sit down on the couch and he'd be drinking, and they'd be drinking, and we would. That was kind of life in the new standard.
Yeah. How old were you when she got married?
It was about a year and a half, 2 years
Okay.
after that. So I was like 8, 9 years old when that all kind of went down. Um,
Okay.
so it just kind of all began there. And, it was interesting because during that time, there was a lot of conflict between my parents, and this is, sometimes divorce, it can turn into something that's, you know, amiable, something that, people are able to get along and work
Hmm.
together,
Hmm.
co-parenting and all that. Unfortunately, ours wasn't exactly that way. They were able to be in the same room, but there was still a lot of tension. Just everything from my father living and still, holding true to his covenants and, everything that he practiced, but at the same time still struggling. And then my mom and my stepfather still trying to figure everything out, and, the finances and child support and just kind of everything that's associated with that. So there was a lot of conflict. And I remember that during that time, there was one thing that really stood out to me that kind of made me kind of, think and just kind of process. I'm laughing because right now I was just sitting and I said, think and, wonder. And my children love Dr. Seuss. And there's one of the lines is wonder and think and wonder how much water can 55 elephants drink. And I was sitting here and I'm like, no, get that out of my head. But we were sitting there, and my oldest brother, he started to kind of experiment and try to find out life. He had gone through a lot, not judging him, but just observational. He had gone through so much, and he started to turn to a rough group of friends. He started drinking at a very young age. He started smoking at a very young age, and when he would smoke cigarettes in the front yard. And one day my mom got tired of it, so she made us all go out, and we picked up the cigarette butts and we brought them inside the house, and we just laid them all over his bed underneath his blankets. And just the kind of a thing to try to get him to think about what he was doing, and especially to not do it at the house.
Yeah.
And it just one of those things that was a tough parenting decision that we were trying to go through. But with that, as my brother was kind of going through and experiencing kind of these new things, there was one time where there was some conflict in the house, and I don't remember exactly how it started, but he and my stepdad kind of got into a heated argument, and my mom went in and got involved, and then my brother had pushed my mom to kind of get her away. And in that moment, my stepdad grabbed him by his throat and kind of lifted him up and pinned him against the wall. And that was just a moment that was so terrifying for me. And my mom kind of came out, and she kind of pushed us away and got us away. It was just such an interesting and intense and unfamiliar experience at that moment. But it really kind of opened up my eyes to kind of realize that this is what life is. This is what a man is. This is what you do, that there's aggression, that there's fighting, that there's kind of this rough tumble, old cowboy type of persona that we have to be as men.
That's how you get stuff done.
That's how you get stuff done.
Yep.
And it wasn't really that way.